Okay, this is our second program on meiosis. Here we're going to discuss again some of the issues with meiosis, how it differs from mitosis, and we're going to go into a problem called nondisjunction and intersex births and intersex overall. So meiosis is a type of cell division that occurs to change diploid cells into haploid cells. Okay, this happens in animals to produce sperm and egg. Those sperm and egg unite in fertilization back to produce a diploid cell. Okay, this is part of the life cycle of eukaryotes where they alternate between haploid and diploid using sexual reproduction. Okay, I should point out in some organisms, some plants, the haploid generation also involves mitosis and there's a haploid body. Okay, mitosis and meiosis, the main difference is we have two cell divisions in meiosis. We have pairing of homologous chromosomes that exchange segments, and then we have the random assortment of homologous chromosomes in meiosis 1. Crossing over produces variation by allowing non-sister chromatids to exchange segments. Okay, and so this may happen several times, and so this mixes genes that were on different homologous chromosomes. And this again happens at different spots, and so this will produce lots of different combinations of genes, as will random assortment. The random alignment of homologous chromosomes on the metaphase plate in metaphase 1. Each one of those duplicated chromosomes will migrate to a different daughter cell, and what pair goes which directions is entirely at random. So the benefit of this is that this is going to produce variations. The independent assortment of chromosomes, the number of possible combinations is 2 to the nth, where n is the haploid number. So in humans, that's 2 to the 23rd power. That's over 8 million. And so this produces lots and lots of different variation. An individual can produce over 8 million variants. And that's not counting any variation um, that's due to crossing over. So this is really an incredible amount of variation. So the same two organisms can produce really, really different offspring that have different combinations of genes. Okay. In addition, another topic on meiosis that we want to talk to is that meiosis sometimes doesn't go as planned. Sometimes there are errors in meiosis where whole chromosomes migrate the wrong direction. This is referred to as nondisjunction, and this can happen during anaphase 1 or anaphase 2, and it winds up with individuals having not having 23 chromosomes. They'll have 22 or they'll have 24. Uh, there's there's really lots of different possibilities here. When this happens, an organism has too many or too few copies of genes. Most times when this happens, the resulting embryo is non-viable and it will result in the death of the embryo at some point. However, in some cases, the embryos are viable and will make it to birth. 3 are listed there. You probably have met somebody with Down syndrome. Down syndrome is probably one of the milder versions of non-disjunctions. Individuals generally are short-statured, may have some heart defects, may have some learning disabilities, but generally have a pretty good prognosis. They're going to live into adulthood. They may even reproduce. They may even be able to hold a job. In non-disjunctions, then, uh, here's a kind of showing you what's going on with the chromosomes. It can be a whole homologous pair fails to separate, or it could be that sister chromatids fail to separate. And non-disjunctions can happen in mitosis, but they're just less of a problem because they don't affect every cell in the body. In meiosis, that will affect every cell in the body. And so it's a bigger deal. Meiosis errors are common in older adults, and so most of those are going to lead to spontaneous abortions, that the pregnancy will result in a problem and at some point it will be lost. The later it's lost, generally it's the more severe problems to the mother that's carrying this infant, because there can be lots of bleeding, there can be you know all sorts of issues. Usually this will be detected during pregnancy because of those issues. It may lead to a recommendation from physicians for abortions. Um, and so, although we're familiar with Down syndrome, there's lots of other possibilities. They all are, most of them don't produce viable embryos. So here's one where there's a trisomy with, I think it's chromosome 13. That's Patau syndrome. Okay. In addition to Down syndrome, there's another one that's fairly, or others that are fairly common, and some we probably don't recognize is in because they produce adults that are nearly normal. These often involve the sex chromosomes. So we can have individuals with abnormal numbers of sex chromosomes, XXY, XYY, XXX, and X0, the Turner syndrome. Okay, for almost all of these, you would not recognize these individuals by looking. They will appear normal at birth. They will be, um, the physician that attends the birth will call this a normal male or a normal female. It won't be till later that some of these will develop problems in their reproductive systems. They may have small or missing reproductive organs, but in the case of a woman or a man, these might not be, really obvious until puberty occurs, or until they're, missing their period, or can't get pregnant. And so something like 1 in a couple thousand births are Klinefelter syndrome males. They'll uh, they'll have 2 copies of the X chromosome and 1 copy of the Y. They will be normal intelligence, normal stature, but they won't be able to reproduce. Um, there are, if we talk about 1 in 2,000 births, that means in Freeport, there's probably something like 5 to 10 men that have this. Okay. Likewise, Turner syndrome females will appear normal at birth, but will not be able to reproduce as adults. You will not be able to recognize them. That's something like 1 in 5,000 births. So in Freeport, there's 2 to 5 females walking around with Turner syndrome. So these people, uh, we refer to them as intersex, because they're not truly male, they're not truly female, and they're fairly common. There's lots of these people that have these syndromes, and many of them are undiagnosed. There are other causes of intersex births and intersex individuals. Again, probably not diagnosed at birth, or unless you would happen to do a karyotype at birth. Some of these produce absolutely normal looking individuals that only have problems later when they enter puberty or try and reproduce. One of the most common ones involve females that are actually genetically male. This can be caused by androgen insensitivity syndrome, where you have a defective testosterone receptor. And so when testosterone is secreted during early development to result in the formation of male sex organs, it just doesn't, the cells don't get the response. And so you form normal female anatomy, except no ovaries. This is something like 1 in 25,000 births. And you can also have a defect in the enzyme that activates testosterone, the 5-alpha reductase deficiency, something like 1 in 5,000 births. They're genetically a male, but they have normal female anatomy except no ovary. You can also have females that look like males, that have male anatomy. This can be caused by congenital adrenal hyperplasia, where the adrenal glands make a lot of androgens. And so this can be, they can appear as a male, or they may even have kind of a mixture between male and female anatomy. But there's a bunch of different ways this can happen. This is fairly common, that as many as 1% of births might be in some ways intersex, although they may not be diagnosed that way till much later. Even the test that the people that are concerned about athletes changing sex want to use to evaluate the reproductive systems of female athletes, even that test has a problem. Uh, Both the bar body test or now the test they've switched to, the SRY gene test, can give false positives and false negatives. The SRY gene test, which has now been adopted, is a test for a gene that's active during male puberty. This gene is normally found only on the Y chromosome, okay? But it can, in some cases of abnormal crossing over, it can cross over in some cases to the X chromosome. And so some females may have this gene. It doesn't do anything in them, but they may have it. In um, XXY individuals, they they may have this gene, but they will have absolutely normal female anatomy. They will be the attending physician at birth will say this is a normal girl. This girl will develop normal external anatomy. She may have the XRY gene, but it's not because she's cheating. It's because uh, that you know it's there, but it's not going to produce a male. Okay, so mitosis and meiosis share many features. Chromosomes condense, they move, they attach to microtubules, things like that. However, there's differences. Meiosis involves two cell divisions, results in haploid cells. Meiosis has crossing over with exchange of DNA segments. It also has this random assortment of homologs. Okay, today we've focused on non-disjunctions that produce gametes that have abnormal numbers of chromosomes. This causes major spontaneous abortions and major birth anomalies like Down syndrome and intersex. We've also mentioned other causes of intersex syndrome.